Hi guys, welcome to this review of Wendy and Julian Season 1, Episode 5, Kids. Let's get into it. So we meet these kids, the children of Wendy's co-worker that she has agreed to babysit overnight. So we have Phoebe, who looks like she's probably around 7 or 8. And we have Terrence, who looks like he's maybe like 13, maybe 14, somewhere around in there. So Phoebe, the little girl, is going through Wendy's purse, taking out her credit cards, talking trash to Wendy about her hair, although Wendy and Phoebe's hair are kind of like almost similar styles. So we got that going on. Then we have Terrence, who is non-stop trying to holler at Wendy. So by the time Julian comes over, Wendy's like, these kids are a nightmare. He comes in with treats because, he's cool like that. He knows how to win the kids over. Everybody loves Uncle Julian and all of that. So he comes in with this master plan that we're going to get these kids some snacks. We're going to let them do what their parents don't normally let them do. It's going to be all copacetic. We're going to be good. That doesn't work. So when Julian meets the kids, he tries to give dap to Terrence, and Terrence is like 3 words, brother, tic-tac, homie. And I'm like, all right. And then Phoebe looks at him and she's like, what's wrong with your face? And Julian's like, what? So it just goes downhill from there. Later on, Terrence puts on Julian's jacket and his ring, and he says, hey, I'm Big Dumb Julian, and I like to eat chicken wings on YouTube. That was hilarious. That was the funniest line in this episode. It was hilarious. So Julian tries to get him to get his stuff. The little boy is running from Julian. Julian's trying to catch him. Julian thinks the kid has went outside. It's night. At this point, it's around like, what, 12:30 at night? So the little boy ends up locking Julian outside the house. He closes the door so, he can get back in here and talk to Wendy. So Wendy is again massaging the little girl's hair and telling her, my mom used to do this, and when I couldn't sleep, my mother used to massage my hair and my scalp and twist my hair, and the little girl Phoebe was like, oh, so you know how to do your hair, but you just choose not to. See, these little kids, these are little badass kids, now. So Julian is knocking on the window, and Wendy lets him in. She's like, what happened to you? And he's like, Terrence. So he's ready to whoop Terrence's ass. He takes off his sandal to whip Terrence's ass. And Wendy's like, you can't hit this kid. You can't beat this kid. What happened to all the Oreos and stuff and everything that was supposed to win him over and all of that? And so Terrence comes out and he's like, you want these hands? You want these hands? So it's just a big old mess. They're getting loud, and it's funny more than anything else. And so the little girl Phoebe comes out the room. She's like, hey, I'm trying to sleep. And then she demands her mother. Wendy's like, your mother doesn't come back till tomorrow. And the little girl is like, no, I want my mother now. And so Wendy appropriately firmly tells this little girl that your mother is not coming back tonight and for her to go to bed. And little girl, I want my mama now. So Wendy just firmly again tells her, go to bed, okay? And the little girl tells Wendy, you would be a horrible mother. I said, oh, Lord, damn. See, damn. So now the little girl has set off a trigger. So Wendy goes outside because that comment from little girl Phoebe triggers her guilt about the abortion. So Terrence says when Wendy's upset, pushes past him, goes outside. Terrence like, well, I'm going to go out here and check on her. Julian said, what? So Julian pushes his little ass in the room and ties him up and tapes his mouth. So Julian then goes outside to talk with Wendy. Wendy asks Julian, do you think I was wrong for having an abortion? So Julian says no. What she should have asked him is, would you think I was wrong for having an abortion if it were your child? Because that's a different question now, isn't it? Isn't it? That's a different question. So Julian tells her no, and and she's like, she's telling him she's just tired of feeling guilty, from the energy she's getting from Stacy, the energy that she's that she got from Daryl. She could have threw in her dad and her grandfather because they clearly were not in support of her having had an abortion either. So she's just like, I don't want to feel guilty all my life. And so she tells Julian that, you know, she had the abortion at the time because she just wasn't ready to be a mother. But the more she thinks about it, she just doesn't know if she ever really wanted kids. And so Julian is like, look, don't let these little motherfuckers, these little bad motherfuckers make you feel like you don't want kids. And she's like, no, I just really don't know if I really ever wanted kids. I don't think I ever really wanted kids. And so Julian lets her know that, well, you know, I want kids. So if I want kids and you don't want kids, that's a big problem. And this scene reminded me of, let's go way back in Black and Sexy TV and with the That Guy series, because this is exactly what happened with Dion and Jerome. Dion didn't want kids, Jerome did, and they ended up breaking up. It's the same dynamic as far as you're in a serious relationship, one person wants kids and the other person doesn't. So yeah, that could be a deal breaker. I mean, throughout the episode, they kind of talk about it off and on and kind of agree to kind of just go with the flow of things and see where they land. But real life, I can't see how people move forward in that situation if they disagree, because I think that's one hell of a concession for someone to make who wants kids. I think especially if they don't have any kids at all. And if they want kids with you and you're saying, no, you don't want kids, that's one hell of a concession to never have kids at all. And if you don't want kids, that's also a concession to feel like you're being forced to do something that you don't want to do. And I think sometimes when people reach that disagreement, I think sometimes when people move ahead, it's because they think they can convince the other person to come around. So I'm just saying, whether you're the woman in the situation or the man, I think it's one hell of a concession to give up on children just because the other person doesn't want what you want. I think it's a deal breaker. I'm not convinced that Wendy doesn't want kids. I think Wendy is still suffering from a tremendous amount of guilt. I think she is also still experiencing a tremendous amount of shame. And I think she is, you know, and the shame I think is just due to the choice itself to have the abortion, but that hits against her upbringing and everything else. So she's definitely feeling shame. And I think it also is speaking to her grieving process, you know, of what she actually lost when she had this abortion. And she might also be having some guilt about the reason she really had the abortion, meaning she says that she had the abortion because she was just not ready to be a mother and it was the right decision for her. The timing was bad. But was the timing really bad? So was the timing really the issue, or was it who the father was or who the father wasn't that was the issue? If Wendy had been pregnant for Julian, would she have aborted Julian's child? You know, this is a question that Daryl had asked her. She never answered it, of course. But I don't think Wendy would have had an abortion if she had been pregnant with Julian's child. And so if she knows that, you know, whatever reason she's given about timing and blah, blah, blah and all of that and not acknowledging that, then yeah, I do think that will add to more guilt, because you really ended up having an abortion because of a pregnancy that you didn't want with a particular person. That was a result of some fucked up choices that you made as far as dealing with your ex, whatever you and Julian were, whatever she and Julian was first go around. And she ended up dealing with one of his best friends, if not his best friend. So yeah, there was a casualty, the abortion, and I think she's dealing with a lot of things that she's not saying out loud. Because I don't think she would have had an abortion if she had been pregnant for Julian. So the next day they go to the park. Julian's playing with Phoebe. Wendy doesn't want to have any conversation about the baby or having babies. She doesn't want to talk about that. So she's sitting on the park bench, and here comes little player Terrence over there sitting beside her and putting his arm around her and telling her, you know, you look so sad, and let me buy you something to make you not sad. And he pulls money in a wallet out of his pocket, and she's like, where'd you get that? And he's like, I found it on the playground. And at that time, we have the colonizer show up, and he's like, that's my wallet. And he starts going in on Terrence, telling him, look at him. He's a thief. There's a jail cell waiting with your name on it. I mean, he goes in on this little boy. And Wendy goes off on him. Wendy tells him, you're an adult. This is a child. You need to get yourself together. And the guy, he just doesn't shut up. The colonizer does not shut up. He keeps talking trash. Wendy also keeps giving it back to him in defense of little Terrence. And so I love when we got to the part where Wendy, the African American, told the colonizer, I feel threatened. Stand your ground. Let us use the stand your ground rule, okay? So she told him that, I think, at least 3 times, and she told him, I would encourage you to move on because, you know, I got some spray. If you don't want to get sprayed, I would encourage you to move on. So eventually, reluctantly, the colonizer moved on. And so after that, you know, little Terrence was like, oh wow, thank you, oh wow, thank you, Miss Wendy. And you know, he was taking it real light, and Wendy had to break it down for him and give real talk to him about, look, I know you're just a kid, you're a little boy, but to the world, you're not seen as a little boy. And she had to have the talk with him that every African American family has to have with their young children, especially our black boys. When the kid's mom returns home, everybody's knocked out. Wendy, Julian, the kids, they are knocked out. They're sleeping. And so when Wendy wakes up and the little girl wakes up and greets her mom, she's like, well, how were they? And Wendy and Julian's like, they're about to tell the truth, and the kids are like, no, don't rat us out. So they end up, saying the kids were great, they weren't a problem at all, and they covered for the little monsters, okay? And so their mom was like, oh, that's great, it's so good to have new permanent babysitters. I was trying to figure that out. What do you mean new permanent? I wasn't really sure what that meant, but so that's what she said, and she was like, okay, so y'all all good. I'll be back in a few hours. What? And Julian and Wendy got up first to kind of run down her friend and say, hold up, come get your kids. Who does that? Who comes back from an overnight trip of somebody watching your kids and you're like, oh, okay, y'all all good? Okay, I'll be back in a few hours. Girl, if you don't get these damn kids. So for this episode, I really enjoyed the comedy with the kids. I really enjoyed Julian's and Terrence's interaction a lot. I enjoyed the scenes centering around Wendy's abortion guilt and her whole thought process of thinking through, do I want to have kids? Her guilt, her shame. So I enjoyed those scenes a lot. The current episode did not pick up from where the last episode ended. So remember, we had the situation where the roommate, Julian's new roommate, was like, hey, D. She opened the door. Wendy and Julian leaned out. We have no idea who it was. It's speculation. Of course, speculation that it could be Daryl. We don't know because the whole thing wasn't revisited. We just kept moving with the series. So last week, we had Wendy's mother and dad being all cuddled up and huddled up together when Wendy, Julian, and the child bride came back in the house. And so this episode didn't touch on that at all, didn't reference anything about that. We just started out with the babysitting. So I don't know if this is something Black and Sexy TV, the writers, the directors, the producers, are y'all doing this like intentionally? Are you planning on going back and wrapping up or telling us what's happening at the end of these episodes where it's like the cliffhanger, but then you don't address the cliffhanger in the next episode? I'm just really not sure what exactly y'all are doing. However, you know I'm gonna keep watching because I love this series. So maybe y'all plan on pulling all of this together, but right now I don't get it. Because normally when there's a cliffhanger from the last episode, when you go into the next episode, it's almost a lot of times where you start. So I'm really not sure what's happening with that. But since it's now happened twice, I don't know if it's something that Black and Sexy TV is doing strategically or what. But I guess I'll have to keep watching. Like, I hope you guys will keep watching to find out what the deal is with that and just what's the deal with Wendy and Julian. Thank you for watching this video. Subscribe, thumbs up, comment. Let's talk about it. Share your views and your perspectives on this series and on this particular episode. And until the next time, as always, thank y'all for allowing me to have my 2 cents. Bye.